Okay, here we go. Before I get started, though, I'm just going to go over exactly how I'm going to be doing this. I'm going to be going through each team and looking at their over-under win total according to BetUS, who is sponsoring this video today, by the way. And I'm going to give you my thoughts whether or not I think they're going to get over or under that win total. Pretty simple. We're also going to have a few guests later on in this video, so let's get to it. Before we get into the video, I just want to go over today's sponsor, and that is BetUS. We are here at the BetUS house with Jim of Ballcap Sports and Tyler Wardy, NYM. We're here in Florida covering everything for the upcoming season in 2024. We're going over predictions. We're going over over-unders for player statistics and wins as well. You can find all that information on BetUS. The link is in the description down below. They have a great deal going on right now. Your first 3 deposits, you get up to a 125% bonus. You don't want to miss out on that deal. So let's get to the video. Starting off with the LA Angels, and BetUS has their win total set at 71.5. I know they have a new manager in Ron Washington. I think that's going to be a good move, but there's a lot of question marks in this lineup, especially without Shohei Ohtani. Mike Trout, Anthony Rendon, they've been having so many injuries over the last few years. Nolan Schanuel is someone interesting I would keep an eye out for. Mickey Moniak had trouble against lefties last year. Let's see if he can take a step forward this coming year. You got a couple of young guys, Logan O'Hoppe, Zach Nato. Nato's bat was a little weak last year. Logan O'Hoppe missed a lot of time last year. A couple of good players in Taylor Ward and Brandon Drury, but I just think overall there's too many question marks for me right now when it comes to this lineup. And same thing with the rotation. Again, no Shohei Ohtani. Reed Detmers, I need to see him take that step forward. His fastball got clobbered last year. The off-speed stuff, the breaking stuff is really good with him, but not quite sure if he's at that ace level. You know, Griffin Canning and Sandoval, those guys are fine. Silseth, I'm intrigued with him. But Tyler Anderson got rocked last year. Just overall, a lot of question marks in this rotation. I feel like they don't have a clear-cut ace at this point. Blake Snell would really change a lot of things. And this bullpen. I know they do got some hard-throwing guys, in this bullpen. You did bring in Robert Stevenson and Matt Moore in free agency. I do like that. Carlos Estevez, though, I'm not the biggest fan of his as a closer. He walks too many guys for my liking personally. So, there is potential with this Angels team, but overall, I'm going to go under for right now. On to the Houston Astros, coming off their 7th straight ALCS appearance. BetUS has them at 92.5. The Astros are interesting this year. Now, the offense, we know this offense is going to be very good. Of course, you got guys like Jose Altuve, Jordan Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker. The guy I'm looking at, though, is Jose Abreu. I need him to step forward this year. Had a really bad season last year. He did heat up towards the end, so let's see if that can carry over to this coming year. That would be huge for the Astros lineup for this coming season. The rotation right now, Justin Verlander going to be starting the year on the IL. How much time is he going to miss? So when you're looking at these guys, I do like this rotation. Framber Valdez, Christian Javier, they had their ups and downs last year. Christian Javier did look better towards the end of the season, while Framber Valdez fell off a bit in the second half last year. Hunter Brown, looking for him to take a step forward this coming year. So let's see how that goes. But, Verlander here, that definitely would make a huge difference. But the story of the Astros in the offseason was the bullpen, adding Josh Hader as your closer. This back end of the bullpen is absolutely nasty. And the Astros bullpen in the second half last year didn't fare so well when it came to the Fangraph WAR leaderboards, only 24th overall in the second half last year. So I think Josh Hader is definitely going to help there. It's the Astros at the end of the day. I feel like it's always safe to take the over with them. So that's what I'll do. I'll go over the 92.5. Moving on to the Oakland A's, it doesn't seem like anything is fun for Oakland A's fans these days. The win total set here is 56.5. Now, Oakland, they have a few intriguing young players here. I like Zach Geloff a lot. I think he's going to be a very solid player. I'm a big Ryan Noda fan, guy that gets on base a lot, looking to see what Shea Langeliers can do as he matures more as the catcher for the Oakland A's. Esteury Ruiz brings a ton of speed. Do like me some Brent Rooker, solid player, in my opinion. Going to give you some pop there in the middle of the order. You know, a guy like J.J. Bleday used to be a higher prospect in the Marlins system. Let's see if he can get something going here. We'll have to see in the rotation. Now, you added a couple of veteran guys in Ross Stripling, Alex Wood. I think that could help. You got, obviously, J.P. Sears here as well, Paul Blackburn. So I do like that you got some veteran guys. Don't forget about Luis Medina, one of their younger guys. He's got a knee issue right now, so he'll come back eventually. But I'm a big Mason Miller fan, looking to see what he can do here at the back end of this bullpen. This guy is dynamite, so he'll be a starter in the future, but right now he's going to be in the bullpen. Got elbow surgery in the last couple of years. So for me, you know, I think they got some intriguing pieces here. I think they maybe could turn some heads, and it's the Oakland A's. They always find a way to do a little bit better than usual. Obviously, only 50 wins last year, but I'll go over here. I think they could go somewhere between, 57 to 60 wins. On to the Toronto Blue Jays, and I have a special guest here helping me out with this one. We got a podcast partner and a housemate for the next few days. We have Jim of Ballcap Sports. Jim, the Blue Jays projected over-under from BetUS is 86.5. Are you going to go over, or are you going to go under here?
I mean, I want to go over because last year the team won 89, and I think most Blue Jay fans would all agree that kind of underperformed with that 89, but a lot of things, even though things went wrong, there were a lot of things that went right, especially from a pitching perspective, the health there. And this year, the way we're starting out is kind of a bad sign with Manoah and Gausman both dealing with some things and coming along slowly. So is that not going to repeat the health with the starting pitching? And then also, they brought in Justin Turner, but how much better did they make their lineup year over year? And so the Blue Jays are going to be interesting to go. I'm going to stick with the over, but I don't feel as confident about it as I did maybe like a week ago before the Gausman and the Manoah shoulder things started happening.
Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat because of the Blue Jays. They've had success over the last couple of years, but you're starting to see some cracks in the armor, right? Gausman with some fatigue in the shoulder, right? Manoah, you didn't even know what you're getting with him prior, and now you're getting some issues with his arm. But when it comes to the offense, right, Vlad Jr. is looking like he's in better shape. How are you feeling about Vlad for this upcoming season?
This is reminiscent of 2 years ago when he came off a down year. He grabbed his Instagram post and showed all of the workout videos, and then he had a monster season. He's looking good, and I'm hoping that brings itself back. He's got to have a bounce back year. Last year was a disappointing year. He's too talented. He's still young, so you're going to go through struggles. I am going to bet on Vladdy to have a bounce back season, and really, I mean, you could almost say the season kind of rests on his shoulders. If the Blue Jays don't get 40 homers, better at bats, a more locked in guy, I don't know. I might rethink my over-under for the Jays.
We'll have to see where it goes. But, the lineup, it still has a lot of dynamic bats. We know what the pitching can do. I would say my main concern for the Blue Jays this coming year is just the durability factor.
Sure.
From top to bottom. Would you agree?
No doubt. Springer, we don't know how many games he's going to play. Justin Turner is an older player. The Blue Jays are, there's I don't know if it's kind of a joke going around, but the Blue Jays are kind of old. And a lot of that is because of Springer and Turner. And then, some of the pitchers are, they're not in their 20s anymore. The durability is a great element here. What is Kevin Kiermaier going to stay healthy and stay out there? I mean, he looks like he's a guy that should have no problem there. But, yeah, I think the durability really with Springer staying healthy. What do you get from Justin Turner? You get hurt when you're in your late 30s. It's harder to recover.
Yep. Well, we'll see what happens with the Blue Jays this year. Still a lot of talent. So let's move on to the next team. On to the Atlanta Braves, a shocking exit in the playoffs last season, but they should once again be a powerhouse this upcoming season. BetUS has them at 101.5 wins. Now, I mean, what else there to say about this Braves team? They're stacked. The offense is stacked. Ronald Acuna Jr. MVP season last year, a little a little concerned about the knee. Hopefully that's not going to be an issue. Had some issues with it in this spring so far. So let's see how that goes. But a healthy season, Ronald Acuna Jr., that is only going to be a good thing for the Atlanta Braves. Obviously, guys like Matt Olson, Austin Riley, Ozzie Albies, Marcell Ozuna. You got Michael Harris II, of course. I mean, my goodness, it just goes on and on. Jared Kelenic, I'm intrigued with. All right, hasn't been able to fully get it going in his career. Kicked a water cooler last year, broke his foot. Let's see if Atlanta could be the right home for him. So overall, though, this lineup is awesome. And the rotation, of course, adding guys like Chris Sale. Sure, yes, he's had a lot of injuries over the last few years, but if he's healthy, good to go, and a lot of pressure being taken off of him here. He goes from a starting pitcher 1 with the Red Sox to being the 3 or the 4 in this rotation. I mean, are you kidding me? But I'm very intrigued with Spencer Strider adding a curveball for this coming year. I mean, he was already deadly with just 2 pitches, and now he's adding in a 3rd pitch. Are you kidding me? Spencer Strider, I think, is easily going to go after a Cy Young this year. And then Max Fried. He was excellent last year when he pitched. He did miss a lot of time, so my eyeballs will be on him and his durability this coming year. He's going to be a free agent soon, so hopefully he has a fully healthy season and pitches well. And Reynaldo Lopez, I think that was a sneaky ad. This is a guy that I think can do a lot of things for the Braves. Throws hard, has good stuff. He can pitch in the 5 spot. He could be a swing man here. So I think that was a good depth piece for the Braves to add. And then the bullpen, I think, is pretty solid for the most part. Reza Iglesias, AJ Minter at the back end. Got some other guys here like Pierce Johnson, Tyler Matzek, Joe Jimenez. So overall, I think this Braves team is once again going to be excellent. I actually do think they're going to get more wins than this. They had 104 last year. I think they'll be right around that same number. Moving on to the Milwaukee Brewers, and they have them at 78.5 wins. Now, the big story with the Brewers this offseason was trading away Corbin Burnes to the Orioles. They got back DL Hall and Joey Ortiz in return, but they made some other moves this offseason. They added Rhys Hoskins. He missed all of last year due to an ACL tear, but this is a guy that had a good amount of power with the Phillies, so he's going to bring that to Milwaukee. That'll be good for their lineup. And most notably as well, signing Jackson Chourio, the number 2 prospect in baseball, to a big contract extension before even playing a major league game. He's an exciting player, a 5-tool kind of a player. I think he's going to be fantastic. And then you have some other pieces in this lineup as well. Sal Frelick, I'm a big fan of his, a hard-nosed player. I think he's going to be very solid. William Contreras was very underrated last year. Not just good with the bat, but very good defensively as well. One of the best all-around catchers in the game right now, in my opinion. And Christian Yelich, of course, how can we forget about him? Had a pretty decent season. Is he living up to that contract fully? Right now I'd probably say no, but Christian Yelich, I feel like he's just going to give you at least a decent to solid year every single year. Willy Adames going to give you some pop there. So overall, I actually do like their lineup, but the Brewers lineup over the last couple of years has been a little on the weaker side, but I think there's some intrigue here. And don't forget about Garrett Mitchell as well. This is a guy, very athletic guy, gets some pop with the bat too. So I like this lineup overall with the Brewers. Don't forget about Gary Sanchez, brought him in, as well as Jake Bauers too. The rotation is going to be interesting. Now, Freddie Peralta is now going to be your starting pitcher 1, and then DL Hall, that's the piece you got back in the Corbin Burnes trade. He's going to be in this rotation 2. Hasn't fully made it as a starter in the major leagues as of right now, but he's been good as a reliever for the Orioles. But let's see if he can translate that to the rotation. The Brewers, they have done well with pitching development, so let's see if they can get him going. Wade Miley as your 2, he's going to give you innings. The rotation as a whole is definitely weak, but the bullpen, like the back end of the bullpen, Devin Williams, one of the best closers in the game. You got some other pieces in here as well, but overall, I feel like the Brewers just find a way to win games every single year, and for the first time in a couple of years, I like their lineup. So yeah, I'm going to go over here. I still think they're going to be right in that, 85 to 88, maybe 90 win range. They're always a team that's competitive. So I would go over here. On to the St. Louis Cardinals, and they have them at 84.5 wins. The Cardinals are interesting this year. They had a very disappointing season last year, and a couple of their top players, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, they dropped off a little bit last year. So it's going to be interesting to see whether or not they can bounce back in 2024. Wilson Contreras, he struggled early on. The bat got going a little bit later. Jordan Walker didn't have that breakout rookie season a lot of people were seeing. So let's see what year 2 looks like for him. I am a big fan of Nolan Gorman. I do think he's going to have himself a solid year for this coming year. When he was healthy last year, he was very solid. Brendan Donovan as well. Let's see him back in this lineup. He did miss a lot of time last year, so that's a guy that's going to be great at the top of the order. I just think there's some question marks here with the Cardinals and their offense, but I do think if everyone is good to go, healthy, on top of their game, this Cardinals offense could be one of the best in the game. But it's a big if you ask me. And then moving on to the rotation. Sonny Gray dealing with a hamstring issue. Looks like he's going to be missing some time in the beginning of the year, but that was their big signing. That was a good add, in my opinion. Also adding some innings, veterans guys like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn. Steven Matz, I think, is a big key for the Cardinals this year. Remember, they signed him a couple of years ago to a 4-year deal. That's a guy, from the left side. He's going to give you some decent innings. Had an ERA and a FIP in the mid to high 3s last year. So that's a guy that's going to be solid for you in the middle of that rotation. So if he's healthy, I think it's going to be a huge lift. But the big key is innings for the Cardinals. They really lacked that last year. And the bullpen. They made a couple of intriguing additions here. Keenan Middleton, I like that addition. A guy with a lot of velocity. Andrew Kittredge, he had a lot of success with the Rays not too long ago. So let's see what he can do. Someone like Ryan Fernandez has a good slider. So that's going to be an interesting one there. Ryan Helsley at the back. He did miss some time last year. So Giovanni Gallegos as well. I think this bullpen could actually be pretty solid. This one is tough because they have a lot of question marks, but I feel like there's a lot of bounce back potential with this Cardinals team. I do worry a little bit about Sonny Gray. Is that hamstring going to be something that's nagging him all year? How is Steven Matz going to contribute this coming year? Will Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado be able to bounce back, give you good seasons? I don't know. I just feel like there's still question marks with this Cardinals team. I right now, I'd probably go barely under on the 84.5. I'm just not fully sold on the Cardinals. We will see how it goes for them. They definitely could very well go over here, though. On to the Chicago Cubs, and they have them at 84.5 wins. They finished with 83 last year. They just missed the playoffs. They fell off right at the end there, but the Cubs still have a very competitive team, if you ask me. The big story of the offseason was bringing back Cody Bellinger, as well as signing Japanese pitcher Shota Imanaga, and don't forget about the trade they made with the Dodgers for Michael Busch. He's going to get an opportunity to play here, so I'm happy for that. Michael Busch is a solid player, if you ask me. But with the Cubs, yeah, sure, you got Bellinger back, you got a solid bat in Seiya Suzuki, Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson, great defense at short, a little bit of pop with the bat, but I'm looking at, some of these young guys, like I mentioned, Michael Busch finally gets a chance to play. Christopher Morel, he was an energetic bat last year. Let's see if he can make some strides for this coming year and be even better. I'm a big Nico Horner fan, so overall, I like the offense with the Chicago Cubs. Then the rotation. I think there's more floor here for the Chicago Cubs than ceiling, but obviously Justin Steele, this guy was great last year, was right in the thick of things in the Cy Young race, but Justin Steele, I expect him to keep being solid. But Imanaga is intriguing, right? Coming over from Japan, big pitch mix, right? Has a lot of life on that fastball despite there not being a lot of velocity. His stuff is, out of this world when it comes to a lot of the stuff plus guys out there. So Imanaga, I think he's going to end up being a pretty solid middle of the rotation guy. Jameson Taillon, though, they're going to need more out of him. Let's see. Jordan Wicks, that's an interesting one. Young guy they drafted not too long ago. So I think there is more floor with this Cubs rotation, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. And then the bullpen, you did add Hector Neris. Don't forget about him. Adbert Alzolay looks like he has found a home as a closer in Major League Baseball. So, I think the bullpen is fine. You got some good arms here. So I do think they're going to get over on this. I think this division is going to be really tight. You got the Brewers, the Cubs, Cardinals battling for wins. We'll get to the Reds in a little bit, but I do think they find a way to get at least 85 wins. On to the defending National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks. Made an unprecedented run to the World Series last year. It looked like the Phillies were going to the World Series, and all of a sudden the Diamondbacks said, excuse us, we're going to go there instead. That just was not expected. Anyway, they got 84 wins last year, and they got even better this offseason. So right off the bat, I'm just going to say over on this, on the 83.5. Starting with the offense, you brought in Jock Peterson. I think that's going to be a good lefty bat to add to this lineup to go along with these other guys here. Corbin Carroll was sensational last year. Can he replicate what he did last year? That's going to be tough to replicate that, but there are still some things Corbin Carroll can do. The chase rate was a little high last year, so let's see if he can cut that down a little bit. I feel like he can do even better when it comes to getting on base even more. So Corbin Carroll, he's electric. Ketel Marte, can he keep staying healthy? He was healthy last year, did really well. So if he stays healthy, he's going to be productive. Gabriel Moreno, I'm excited about him. He's turning into one of the best catchers in the game, in my opinion. The bat looked pretty solid last year. Defensively, he's great. So Alec Thomas, looking for him to take a step forward this coming year. Lourdes Gurriel Jr. coming back. So overall, I'm fine with this offense. The rotation, you brought in Eduardo Rodriguez. That was a solid add, in my opinion, for the middle of this rotation. Now you got 3 guys at the top that are very formidable. And then there's Brandon Pfaadt. Now, sure, the numbers didn't look great with him in the regular season last year, but he emerged in the postseason. He showed what he can do. So I like this rotation for the Diamondbacks. And then the bullpen, I like Sewald and Ginkel at the back. So yeah, the fact that they won 84 games last year and then got better, I definitely think they're going to get over here. On to the LA Dodgers, and they have them at 103.5 wins. What an offseason for the Dodgers. Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, James Paxton, Teoscar Hernandez, Ryan Brazier, Joe Kelly back in the bullpen. I mean, what an offseason. That's just incredible. But this team is stacked. What else is there to say? Betts, Ohtani, Freeman at the top. I mean, that's just insane. What a 1-2-3 punch. The bottom of the order. I would like to see a bit more consistency from some of these guys. Teoscar Hernandez, I mentioned him. He was very inconsistent last year. Max Muncy should still provide a good amount of pop there. James Outman, he had his ups and downs last year in his rookie season, but overall had a pretty good year. Jason Hayward, good story last year. Can he keep it going? Gavin Lux missed all of last year, and so far defensively this spring hasn't looked amazing, so let's see how that goes. And actually, funny enough, as I was recording this video, Dave Roberts announced that Mookie Betts will now be the Dodgers shortstop moving forward. That is quite the development here. I would imagine Gavin Lux is going to shift over to second because I would think they want to try and keep his bat in the lineup, but this is definitely interesting for sure. So, and then Will Smith, he's always pretty solid every single year. But this lineup, I mean, there's so much potential with this lineup. Don't forget, you also brought back Kike Hernandez. So, you got Chris Taylor here. Those guys are going to give you a lot of versatility. And then there's the starting rotation. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, obviously one of the best pitchers in the world coming over from Japan. Amazing velocity, some of the best stuff in the world. His splitter is regarded as one of the best pitches in the world. Very excited to see what he can do. Sure, he's going to have his bumps getting adjusted to the major league game along the way, but I think he's going to be excellent. Don't forget about Walker Buehler. That's a big X factor for the Dodgers this year. Coming off Tommy John, we all know what he can do. He's been tremendous in his career with the Dodgers up to this point. So let's see how he looks coming back from Tommy John this year. And then speaking of injuries, Tyler Glasnow pitching 120 innings last year, first time in his career, and then he gets a 5-year, $135 million deal. So Tyler Glasnow, the big thing with him is health. When he's healthy, he's dynamite. James Paxton, we all know the history of health problems with him. Can he stay healthy? He looked good when he came back last year, but then he faded down the stretch. Bobby Miller, very good last year, right? Rookie season. Had some bumps here and there, but overall, his stuff looks amazing. The ceiling is very high with this rotation, and the bullpen looks solid. Phillips, Gratterall, Kelly, Brazier. Brazier was amazing last year for the Dodgers. So overall, this Dodgers team looks amazing. I know I'm going over quite a lot so far on these teams, but I think you got to go over here for the LA Dodgers. I think they should get at least 105 wins. On to the San Francisco Giants, and they have them at 81.5 wins after winning 79 last year. The Giants, in my opinion, had one of the best off seasons this past winter. I mean, my goodness, you capped it off with Max Chapman after you brought in Jung-Hoo Lee, you brought in Jorge Soler. I like that because you brought in some contact and speed at the top of the order and then a power bat in Jorge Soler, and then you brought in some defense in Max Chapman. I think that's great. Really like this lineup. I think it's more balanced than it was last year. I like these guys like Tyra Estrada, Lamont Wade Jr., Michael Conforto. Let's see another year under his belt after missing a year not too long ago. Can do a little bit more. Patrick Bailey, that defense is off the charts with him. Marco Luciano, look out for him. Is the guy going to be, going into his major league career now? They're giving him the reins at short, so let's see how that goes. It'll be interesting to see what they end up doing with J.D. Davis and Wilmer Flores. Wilmer Flores had a good year last year, so I would imagine with Flores, he's going to find his way into the lineup, at least against lefties, I would imagine. Now, and then moving on to the rotation, I think there is some upside here, but there are some question marks for me. Logan Webb, we all know what he can do. He's sensational. But Kyle Harrison, an electric young arm. Let's see if he can, make some strides this coming year. He had some ups and downs last year, but big addition from this past offseason, Jordan Hicks, not as a reliever, but as a starter. So let's see if the Giants can get him to be a starter. He's done it in the past, but he just walks a lot of guys. He has great stuff. So let's see how that goes. Keaton Winn, I think this is an underrated guy. Look out for him. He has really good stuff, throws a lot of strikes. But you got Robbie Ray coming back at the All-Star break. They traded for him as well. So many moves to the Giants this offseason. So Robbie Ray, if he can get back to his old form, I think that's going to give the Giants a bit of a boost there. And then I do like the back end of the bullpen with Duvall, Rogers, the Rogers brothers, sorry. So I would have to think you got to go over on this one. They were at 79 wins last year, and they made so many additions this offseason. I would imagine they're going to be at least in that 83 to 85 win range and competing for a wild card. For the Cleveland Guardians, they have 78.5 wins after winning 76 last year. Now, the Guardians didn't do too much this offseason. You still got the usual bats. You got Jose Ramirez, you got Steven Kwan, you got Andres Jimenez, Josh Naylor as well. But one guy I'm going to be focusing on is Kyle Manzardo. He was very good in the Rays system before getting traded over for Aaron Savali. Well, he was struggling a little bit at the beginning of last year, but then he came over to the Cleveland organization and started hitting really well again. So Kyle Manzardo, I am very excited about, but I just feel like this lineup still lacks thump. I feel like they're still not quite there as a potent offense as of yet. And then there's the rotation. Shane Bieber, he's been involved in trade rumors all offseason. Will he even be with the Guardians at the trade deadline? We'll just have to wait and see. But you got a lot of young guys here, a lot of intrigue. Tristan McKenzie coming back. He missed a lot of time last year. He was very good a couple of years ago, so let's see what he looks like. I'm sure there's going to be some rust there. Bybee was very good last year. Alan Williams showed some promise, but not quite sure what you're going to get as a whole in this rotation. I think there could be some good upside, but I'm just wondering what the floor is at this point. You still got Clase at the back end of the bullpen. He was involved in trade rumors last year, or this past offseason. So let's see what ends up happening with Clase and Bieber. So overall, the Guardians, I think there could be some potential with this team, but I'm not quite sold on the lineup, not fully sold on the rotation. I think there is upside, though. They could be an underrated team, but I'm just not quite there, though. I'm going to go under for the Guardians right now, especially with a new manager. No more Terry Francona. He was there for so long, a legend of the game, going with Stephen Vogt now. So I wonder if this is going to be a bit of a transition year for the Guardians, kind of, under a new regime, getting used to new things. You got some youth coming up. So I don't know. I'm not quite there with the Guardians. I'm going to go under. For the Seattle Mariners, they have them at 87.5 wins. The Mariners, they made some moves this offseason, bringing back Mitch Haniger in the Robbie Ray trade. He added Mitch Garver for the middle of the order. I think with him focusing on DH, with how good that bat is, not having to focus on the catcher position, I think that's going to keep him healthier for an entire season. I think it's going to be a good add for the Mariners. And of course, Julio Rodriguez, one of the best players in the game. J.P. Crawford was very good last year. Jorge Polanco, that was another addition for the Seattle Mariners. So let's see if he stays healthy. That could be a nice add for them in this lineup. And then Ty France, right? Ty France had a down year after a couple of pretty good years in 21-22, but then last year, numbers went down. So let's see if he can get himself back on track. He's been working really hard this offseason at Driveline, so let's see if he can get himself right. Overall, though, I think this lineup does have more extension in it. I felt like it lacked that. And then there's the rotation. You got Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert. What a 1-2-3 punch. George Kirby last year had a 0.9 walk per 9 rate. That is the 20th lowest of all time in the live ball era. This guy is absolutely nuts. He's a modern day Greg Maddux, if you ask me. But Luis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, that's solid. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better 1-2-3 there. Hopefully full health for those guys. And then a couple of young guys, Bryce Miller, Brian Wu, great stuff among those guys, looking to see what they can do this coming year, if they can take a step forward. I feel like with this bullpen, you got Andres Munoz now as your closer after you traded away Paul Sewald. Curious to see how this bullpen is over a full year. I think they could be good. There's definitely some good arms here, but I just wonder about just the upside of this bullpen. I like Munoz back there. You did bring in Stanek as well. So let's see. So once again, the Mariners winning 88 games last year, and they have them at 87.5. I feel like you got to go over here. They made their lineup deeper. There's more options there. The pitching is always great in the rotation. And then the bullpen, sure. For me, at least, there are some question marks, but I feel like it's going to be okay with Munoz at the back end there. So I think once again, the Mariners, they're going to be in the hunt for the West. They're going to be in the hunt for a wild card. I think they're going to be somewhere in that 88 to 90 win range. For the Miami Marlins, they have them at 78.5 wins after winning 84 last year. This Marlins team is intriguing to me. Luis Ariz was a big story for the Marlins last year. He was chasing a 400 batting average at one point. Very good season for him. But let's see what he can do going into year two. I still think he's going to be really solid at the top of that order. Josh Bell going to be in Miami now for a full year after getting traded there. So I think Bell, he'll always be a pretty solid bat for you. Jake Berger they got last year at the deadline. That's some good power there. Jazz Chisholm, he's always a question mark with the health. I think this year, this is probably the year where he's had the least expectations. Could that be a good thing for him? He just always has trouble staying healthy. You did bring in Tim Anderson, but he is a big question mark, right? He had a very bad year last year. Let's see, change the scenery, 1 year deal, prove it deal for Tim Anderson and can get it back on track. A couple other bats here, Brian De La Cruz, Jesus Sanchez. I think Jesus Sanchez is intriguing. He's got some pop there. Aviseo Garcia, he's looking like a pretty bad contract at this point. So I don't know. The rotation, the pitching was a big thing with the Marlins last year, but no Sandy Alcantara this coming year. Jesus Luzardo is now the ace. Uri Perez, top pitching prospect, came up last year. So I like that at the top there. But then there's some question marks yet again. AJ Puck, this is a guy that's been very good as a reliever. Can he transition fully into being a starter? The Marlins, they have done well with these guys. Jesus Luzardo, perfect example. Let's see if they can transition Puck into being a starter. Edward Cabrera, Trevor Rogers, though, a lot of health issues. So let's see how durable they'll be this coming year. I think Scott Nardi is good at the back end there. So, you got some arms in this bullpen. Sixto Sanchez is a name that sticks out there. Overall, it's weird because I was feeling good about the Marlins last year. And this year, I'm just not. I don't know. It's just a gut thing. I just think there's a lot of durability concerns with me in the rotation. You got some question marks in the lineup. Losing Jorge Soler, I think, was a big loss. Let's see if these guys can still provide that pop in the middle of the order. I don't know. I'm just feeling under here for the Marlins right now. I know that might upset some people, but I think they're going to be in that 75 to 78 win range. On to the New York Mets. We are back at the Bet US house, and I have a special guest here, housemate of mine for the next few days. We have Tyler Wardy, NYM. Wardy, Mets, 81.5 is the projection on Bet US. Are you going over or are you going under?
This is an easy over for me. And before you go out your way to say, this is a delusional, overly optimistic Mets fan, because I know I have been at the past. I understand. When it comes to the Mets this year, you look at what David Stearns did this offseason. He did something that's so pivotal for a team to have success, and that's at least to have a solid amount of quality depth. This is not something they've had in previous years since Steve Cohen became owner, which is why they struggled so mightily early in the season, including last year down with injuries, already calling up guys that aren't major league caliber pitchers or players. Now, even though that, yes, I think the floor is lower for their rotation, at the same time, I think they have more innings eaters and guys that, again, can get you quality outs better than what we've seen potentially in years past to a degree. I understand all the talent, but they've struggled to stay on the field. And I know there's question marks with guys like Severino and Minaya, and of course we know that. But if they can stay healthy, Mets definitely have potential there. With the bats, they have the weapons. I think they're going to be in a position to buy at the deadline, so I got to go 81.5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to go the over as well. Yep. In the offense, you got quite a few good bats. Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Francisco Alvarez really emerged last year. What bat are you excited for this coming season?
Oh, so many, but it's really hard not to be overly excited again about Francisco Alvarez. The way he's kicked off spring to this point, hitting the absolute nukes, left, right, center, and knowing that since the jump, as someone who's seen him even play in Brooklyn, a few Cyclones games I've been to, he hit an absolute nuke, and the first time I saw him live as, a young kid, you can tell he's different, and that is certainly the case with him. I really think he's a generational catching talent, and this is the power bat that's going to help protect Pete Alonso internally. I know that we wouldn't be opposed to an external option like a JD Martinez, but Francisco Alvarez wouldn't shock me whatsoever if he finds himself with a 35, even maybe 40 home run season. if he does get the amount of reps and games in, and he certainly will.
Yeah, I like Alvarez a lot. And in the rotation, Kadai Senga going down for a little bit to begin the season. Who are you looking for in the rotation to really step up in his absence?
Yeah, everyone, right? It's an next man up mentality. The good news is that as of now, knocking on wood or whatever, with us Mets fans, we're unfortunately used to, oh, it's only going to be a month. Oh, then it gets set back. Oh, it's the All-Star break. Oh, it's not even the season. Q Jake here. But I will say between Severino, Minaya, we need these guys to step up. Adrian Hauser, Tyler McGill, Jose Buto, Joey Lucchesi, at least one of them, especially stepping up in Senga's absence. So probably McGill in that group out of them, because the Mets need to make sure that they have a solid 1 through 5. And with that uncertainty now, he's had a great start this spring. We need that to continue up until Senga's absence at the absolute least. So.
And real quick, before we move on, Luis Severino, a guy that has all the stuff, all the talent, just hasn't been able to put it together. What are your expectations of Luis Severino this year?
Truthfully, and I spoke about this in a recent player preview and projection video I did on my channel, Severino is someone that I think, if everything goes right this year, can be a sub-4 ERA pitcher for the Mets. 3.75, 3.8. If he touches 4, that's fine too. It's really about getting the quality innings from him and knowing that his arsenal is still very much there. Touching 97 on the gun, got the changeup. The slider's different too. He has basically a slower and a faster one now, a little different than years past. And he's getting sleep. That's the big thing. That was a big problem for him in years past, and you worked a lot with that this past offseason. So, Sevy, I'm cautiously optimistic about him. Feeling pretty good.
Yeah, me as well. Well, I'm looking forward to the Mets this year, and I do think they go over. So, Wardy, thank you.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the next team. Up next, we have the Washington Nationals, and I have Mike of Stark Raving Sports to help us out here. So, Mike, Washington Nationals, BetUS has them at 66.5 wins. Are you going to go over, or are you going to go under?
I'm really confident in over because I think all 3 parts of their team have the potential to be really underrated. You don't really have to start on the potential of these young bats coming up, like, say, James Wood coming up, say, Brady House coming up. You also have Lane Thomas, Stone Garrett, like a lot of guys who've shown they can hit, Keibert Ruiz. Starting rotation has pieces, mainly Josiah Gray and Mackenzie Gore. You've got stuff there. Kind of really like their bullpen relative to the expectations, too. Hunter Harvey had a great year last year. Tanner Rainey is hopefully healthy. You have plenty of different options. Kyle Finnegan's been sneaky, pretty consistent. I'll even throw a sleeper name at you, Jose Ferrer, who throws pretty hard, misses barrels, gets a lot of ground balls.
Like that.
So I think that they're really undervalued, especially in a division with a few moving parts for the middle teams. So I'm going to take the over on them.
Yeah, I'm going to go over as well. They won 71 games last year. And, you look at what they did this offseason, not the most notable moves, but bringing in guys like Joey Gallo, bringing in Eddie Rosario, a couple of veteran guys. You mix them in with some of these young pieces like that they have, like C.J. Abrams, Keibert Ruiz, and then you got a couple of young pitchers in the rotation, like you mentioned. Mackenzie Gore, I'm looking to see if he can take a big step. Josiah Gray as well. And then you got a couple of young guns down in the minor leagues. Dylan Cruz, the number 2 pick from the draft not too long ago. He is going to be a superstar in my opinion. And then you have, like you said, James Wood coming up. So I think the Nationals' future, it's starting to look a little brighter. I don't think they're fully going to be competitive yet, but I see them taking a step forward. And I think they could be a pretty fun team. What do you think?
I think you brought up some names I didn't even remember to say, which shows me how much talent they've got for sure. And that if some of these guys click, they could have noticeable improvement. Maybe not like competing for wild card this year, but they definitely are a team that you have to watch to maybe take a step forward.
For sure. And we've seen some of these young teams in the past, like the Orioles a couple of years ago, the Reds recently taking these steps. So let's see what the Nationals can do in 2024. Moving on to the Baltimore Orioles, and they had an incredible season last year, winning 101 games. But this year, BetUS has them at 90.5 wins. I think it's going to be an interesting year for the Orioles. And the big story in the lineup is all the youth they have. Adley Rutschman going into year 3, Gunnar Henderson going into year 2, winning Rookie of the Year last year. And then you got Jackson Holliday, who I think at least should be with the Orioles on opening day. I don't think there's really anything else to prove at the minor league level. Take your bumps at the major league level, get better there. And then you got some veteran guys, Cedric Mullins, you got Austin Hayes, you got Ryan Mountcastle, Anthony Santander. I still think this lineup is going to be very good, and I don't really have any concerns with this Orioles lineup. Moving on to the pitching. Now, Kyle Bradish is not in this rotation. Who knows how much time he is going to miss having an elbow problem. So let's see. But luckily, they did get someone like Corbin Burns, one of the best pitchers in the game. Absolute workhorse, going to give you some great stuff. I am very comfortable with him at the top of the rotation there. His numbers have been digressing a little bit over the last couple of years after winning that Cy Young, but still one of the better pitchers in the game. And Grayson Rodriguez showed a lot of promise last year at times, took his bumps as well, but this guy has just amazing stuff. I do wonder about, 3 through 5 here, Kramer, Wells, Irvin. I feel like they could use one more option. That's where Bradish would have been excellent. So going to be on the lookout for this rotation as a whole. And I am a little worried about the bullpen, right? Craig Kimbrell, this guy gives everyone heart attacks. Anytime he comes on the mound, he always makes it exciting. But he is going to be your closer. Felix Bautista is now going to be missing the entire year on the IL. So that, I think, was a huge loss. Kimbrell, in my opinion, is a downgrade there. So you still got Cano in the setup role. So I do wonder about the bullpen a smidge. I still think they should be okay. And then there's John Means, and he's going to be starting the year on the IL. He's been having some issues with the elbow. He's been having issues for the last few years now. So let's see what his durability is looking like. So overall, I think with the Orioles, there's still tons of talent on this team. This team will be very competitive yet again. I wonder if they will approach that 100 win mark. I just wonder about the durability in some aspects of this team, but they're still going to be very good. I do expect them to get more than 90.5 wins. Do I expect them to be in that 100 win range again? I'm not sure about that. I think they easily could be in that 92 to 95 win range though. So for here, I'll go over. For the San Diego Padres, they have them at 81.5 wins. A disappointing season for the Padres last year with a big payroll, only winning 82 games, missing the playoffs, and then they traded away Juan Soto to the Yankees this offseason. But I still think this offense can be pretty good. And I'm looking at Fernando Tatis Jr. Now, he missed a lot of time recently, the PED suspension. He got a wrist surgery, came back last year, was pretty up and down. But I think Fernando Tatis Jr. is in store for a big year. The batted ball data still looked really good with him last year. Plate discipline needs to improve a little bit, but I think he is due for a big year. I'm comparing last year with him to 2022 Ronald Acuna Jr. after he came back from knee surgery. So I'm just thinking, I don't know, I got good vibes about Tatis Jr. this coming year. And then you still got some veteran guys, Xander Bogaerts, Machado, Ha-Seong Kim was a fun player last year. And then look out for someone like Jackson Merrill, one of their top prospects. He's probably going to be coming up this year, and he is projected to be with the Padres on opening day. So we'll see how this goes. I still feel like they need to add something to this outfield. In center field, I think would be good. Jose Azocar right now is projected to be the center fielder. I would like for them to go after someone like Michael Taylor. That would be a good defensive center fielder out there for them. Give them a little bit of pop. Could they still make a trade for an outfielder? They were connected with Jarren Duran at one point on the Red Sox. So we'll see if they make any other additions for this lineup. But I still think this lineup can be pretty good. Another thing with Xander Bogaerts, he's shifting over to second base now, which I think is a better home for him. Ha-Seong Kim is the better defensive shortstop. So overall, I still like the way they look offensively and defensively too. And then you look at the rotation, right? Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, those two had durability issues last year, and I think right from the get-go that put the Padres in some trouble. And they were just trying to recover in this rotation all year. So I feel like, normal offseason, normal spring, they're going to be good to go for this coming year. But then you also added Michael King in the Juan Soto trade, and he looked great as a starter after transitioning from a reliever late last season with the Yankees. So I like this rotation, honestly. I think this is a pretty solid looking 1, 2, 3, if you ask me. And then you got Brito and Vasquez there. They also got those guys back in the Juan Soto trade. And then there's a lot of intrigue in this bullpen, right? You got a couple of guys this offseason. Yuki Matsui and Woosa Go, a couple of guys internationally who did really well last year, and I'm excited about it. Getting Woosa Go from the KBO, Yuki Matsui from Japan, those guys were very good. So looking to see what they can do. You also got Aniel De Los Santos from the Guardians. He's got some pretty good stuff. Robert Suarez needs to be a bit more consistent though, so that's another aspect of the team that's a question mark. No more Josh Hader, so he's going to have to step into this role. Could they still add something? They were connected with Kenley Jansen at one point. Maybe there could be some kind of a trade there. Kenley Jansen, Jaron Duran, maybe they could do something. We'll see. Don't forget about Wandy Peralta. That's a solid lefty for them. Overall, I like this Padres team. And then to top it all off, you got a new manager in Mike Schilt. And I think Mike Schilt is going to be the right guy for this team. A bit more... I would say more a louder voice for the Padres. Still going to have like that veteran leadership like Bob Melvin did. But I feel like with Schilt, is this going to be a better fit for this team? Like with the veterans that they've got, he's been with those veteran guys before. Not saying Bob Melvin hasn't, but I just think Schilt is a better fit for this team overall with the kind of players that they have. A guy that just commands respect. Not saying Bob Melvin didn't, but I just think he's a better fit overall for the Padres, and I think he's going to do some good things there. So overall, over under, I'm going to go over here. I do. Yeah, sure. You lost Juan Soto, but you shored up other parts of the team, and I think this Padres team is going to be better than people expect. Moving on to the Philadelphia Phillies, they won 90 games last year, and they were one win away from their second straight World Series, a heartbreaking loss to the Diamondbacks in 7 games, and this year, BetUS has them at 90.5 wins. I think the Phillies are going to be interesting this year. Now, when you think about their offseason, they didn't really get better. Sure, they extended Zach Wheeler, they re-signed Aaron Nola, but when you think of just additions on top of what they already had, they didn't really make that much, right? You brought in Whit Merrifield. He's going to be a bench utility guy. I think that's good, but there's not really a whole lot of improvements to the roster from last year. Now, I think there will be some improvements from within. Bryce Harper moving to first base full time, a fully healthy season for him at a less demanding position. I think that's going to be good for his bat. Trey Turner, bad first half last year, but a good second half, got it going after the crowd really got him going there. That was a big thing, giving him that standing ovation to help lift him up a little bit. So Trey Turner, I think he's going to be a bit more consistent this coming year. Guys like Nick Castellanos, I just wonder how much is left there, right? The advanced metrics have gone down over the last couple of years. Sure, he had a better season last year, definitely better than the previous year, but when you take a look at the batted ball data, it's still not very good. The chase rate is not there. He still strikes out a lot, doesn't walk enough. So I just wonder about Castellanos and his defense in the outfield. I think Castellanos needs to be a DH at this point, but you got Schwarber there. So bit of a logjam still. I don't think that helps the team. And then, you got some other young guys. Bryson Stott, he was very good last year. Alec Boehm, still looking for a bit more out of Alec Boehm. Johan Rojas going to be your center fielder. I would imagine they haven't fully, given him the go-ahead that he's going to be the full-time center fielder, so let's see how that plays out. So overall, I think this offense is still going to be very good. JT Realmuto, that's another guy. His offense dipped a little bit last year, but still one of the better catchers in the game, in my opinion, and the rotation. Wheeler Nola, we all know that's one of the best 1-2 punches in the game, but then I just wonder, Taijuan Walker last year was not the most effective. At this point, he's a 4-5 in a rotation, very overpaid. Ranger Suarez, this is a guy who's had, some health issues over the last couple of years, so I'm looking for a full season out of him. Christopher Sanchez, I think, is a bit underrated, so let's see how this goes. I still expect the Phillies rotation to be solid, and even Aaron Nola, right, a bit of a down year for him last year, inconsistent, fixed something with the mechanics late in the year, so let's see if that carries over to this coming year. And the bullpen, no Craig Kimbrell anymore at the back end. I just wonder, how are they going to handle this? Is it going to be Jose Alvarado moving forward? Let's see, can he fully grasp that job by the horn? You got some other options here. There's some good arms in this bullpen. I just want to know what the roles are going to be. I think roles are a big, important thing in a bullpen, right? Guys knowing what they're going to be doing. So let's see how the bullpen management is this coming year. Down in the minor leagues, there's not really a whole lot else to turn to. This is a win now team. And I just wonder, they just haven't fully gotten better, in my opinion. Now, could they still go ahead and maybe sign one of these guys? Maybe bring in Jordan Montgomery. That would be an awesome addition for the 3 spot in that rotation for me. We'll see. But right now, it's tough with this because it's basically the same win total as last year, and they didn't really get better. I'm going to go under here, barely. I feel like they're going to be like 88, 89 as of right now. Maybe they make an addition at the trade deadline. I think that is a possibility. So we'll see, could someone like Mick Abel be maybe a possibility as a trade piece. They don't have a lot of trade pieces in the minor leagues unless a guy emerges. So I'm intrigued to see what the Phillies do by the deadline. We all know Dave Dombrowski is going to look to make moves, but right now, I know I'm probably going to tick some people off, but I'm going to go barely under for the Phillies at 90 wins. Moving on to the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they have them at 74.5 wins. I think the Pirates could have a fun team this year. They got off to a really hot start last year, but then they just completely fell off a cliff. But some fun young players. O'Neal Cruz, most notably, coming back. He broke his ankle last year, so I'm excited to see him with all the power that he has coming back into this lineup, a dynamic player. And then someone like Henry Davis, I'm looking at, the number 1 pick from a couple of years ago. A bad first season at the plate for him, so let's see how much catcher he actually plays this year. Yasmani Grandal was brought in. I thought that was a pretty good move, good veteran move there. So Henry Davis, though, I'm looking for a lot more from him. You still got guys like Brian Reynolds, Brian Hayes. I want to see a little bit more with the bat. Love the defense, but I just want to see a bit more with the bat overall. Jack Sawinski is going to give you some power there. And then someone like Liover Peguero, young guy, one of their top prospects. So let's see what he can do coming up this year. So I think there's some fun pieces in this lineup, so I'm intrigued by it. Mitch Keller signing an extension in the offseason, bringing in some veteran guys like Martin Perez, Marco Gonzalez. And as of right now, Jared Jones, one of their top pitching prospects, is projected to be in this rotation. Let's see if it works out that way. But that's a young electric arm. Let's see how that goes. And I love this bullpen. Love the bullpen for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Bednar, Chapman, and Holderman at the back end. I mean, that's great. That's a really good back end of the bullpen. Underrated, in my opinion. For me, I'm going to go over. I think the Pirates, this year, there's some question marks there, but I think there's a fun team here. And I feel like when they lost O'Neal Cruz last year, I felt like a lot of air just left the room. And, like this Pirates team, sure, they're not quite there yet, but they won 76 last year. And I just think there's a lot of good youth here, and they got some pieces down in the minor leagues that maybe could come up and help. And, Paul Skeens, most notably, could you see him maybe by the All-Star break? We'll see. He is that good. I'm just saying. Someone like Quinn Priester, that could be a possibility that comes up this year. So I think the Pirates, they go over here. I'm not saying they're going to, be tearing down the walls to go for like a wild card spot. Who knows? We've seen crazier things before, but for 74.5, I'll go over. Moving on to the defending World Series champion Texas Rangers. They won 90 games last year. Remember, they barely just made the playoffs last year, so keep that in mind. But I think this Rangers team is interesting, right? Now, this offense, it's off the charts, right? Marcus Semien, Corey Seager right there. Corey Seager did get a surgery for a hernia, so let's see, what's going to be going on with him in the early part of the year. But it's Corey Seager at the end of the day. He's one of the best players in the game. Adolis Garcia really came alive last year, especially in the playoffs. Evan Carter really emerged last year. Josh Young really emerged for them last year. But Wyatt Langford, I'm so excited for this guy. I mean, my goodness, he has just been hitting the crap out of the ball since college. I mean, well, probably since he was probably a 2-year-old, honestly. He's that good of a hitter. But Wyatt Langford, he's been just killing it in the minor leagues. In spring training, he's off the charts. Wyatt Langford, man, I'm really excited to see what he can do this year. But this lineup, it's going to be bananas. There's so many bats all over the place. Now, where I have trouble is the rotation. There's a lot of durability concerns here. Nathan Eovaldi, it's a big year for him. If he gets at least 156 innings, he'll get that vesting option for $20 million for 2025. So it's a big year for him. But for the Rangers, hey, durability has been a thing with him over the last few years. They need him to stay healthy, especially Max Scherzer having back issues. He's not going to be with the Rangers in the first part of the season, so let's see when he comes back. You got Gray and Heaney, Dunning, Bradford, those are fine, but I feel like it's lacking at the top there. I like Eovaldi, I do, but the durability is a concern. I think Scherzer is always a concern, especially in the last couple of years when it comes to the health. And then Jacob deGrom, you could see him back, towards the end of this coming season. But I'm just a little worried about the durability of the pitching and the bullpen. You did add some veteran guys, right? David Robertson, Kirby Yates you brought in. Jose Leclerc, he emerged in a big way in the postseason this past year. I still think there are question marks with his bullpen a little bit. Offense, great. Pitching-wise, I'm not so sure. I'm actually going to go under here. I'm a little weary about the durability with the pitching. I could see anywhere from 85 to 89 wins. I think 89 wins they could definitely do it, but I just wonder, is the pitching going to be enough to get to that 90 win range? Moving on to the Tampa Bay Rays, they won 99 games last year, and BetUS has them at 84.5. That might seem pretty low, but you got to remember, right? Wander Franco, we're not even sure if he's ever going to play the game of baseball ever again. They traded away Tyler Glasnow. That was a big piece for them last year. So it might seem a little drastic, like a big drop off, right? But they did lose a lot with just those two players. So do keep that in mind. But I still think this Rays team is very good. They always find a way to, be in the thick of things every single year, right? Still a lot of talent in this lineup. Randy Rosarena going to be basically the face of your team now. Got guys like Yandy Diaz, very good season for him last year. Brandon Lau, projected for 23 home runs. Did miss some time last year. Brandon Lau, I still think is a pretty productive player when healthy. So let's see if he can stay a bit more consistent this year. Isaac Paredes hit for a lot of power last year. Let's see if he can keep that going. And then a couple other names I'm going to be on the lookout for. Junior Caminero, the number 4 prospect in the game. That guy's got a ton of power. Could be a very special player. And then someone like Curtis Mead. I'm looking to see if those two guys can come up this year and contribute. And then when you go to the rotation, right? No more Tyler Glasnow. You got Ryan Pepio back in that deal. So you're probably going to see some regression there. Obviously, Ryan Pepio is just getting into his major league career. Zach Eflin, I'll be honest with you. I do worry a little bit when it comes to the top of this rotation. Eflin, he had a great year last year. Remember, he's had the durability concerns in the past, right, before coming to the Rays. He was great last year, but can he stay healthy this coming year? We'll see. Aaron Savali, they brought him in. That's a solid piece there. I do wonder about the rotation a little bit. There's no Glasnow, no McClanahan. That was another name I forgot to mention. So there is upside here. I just wonder how much. So I'm curious to see how that transition is going to be with basically a new rotation. They always find a way to just have a good bullpen. You added Phil Maton here. Fairbanks at the back end. I think that's good. I would say with the Rays, they still feel like a pretty well-rounded team. It's the old saying, it's every single year. You just can't pick against the Rays. You can't do it. You're going to look like a fool if you do it. People want to. I want to. It feels like every single year, and then you get bit in the butt for it. So yeah, I'm going to go over here, but I do think they're still going to be at least in that 88 to 92 win range. So I'll go over on the 84.5. Moving on to my Red Sox, and they have them at 77.5 after winning 78 last year. Where to start with my Red Sox? My goodness. I think we got to start with the rotation, right? The big news of spring training is their biggest signing, Lucas Giolito, is probably going to be out for the entire year. Probably going to have to get Tommy John with a bad elbow. Now, Brian Bayo is probably going to be your opening day guy. They did just sign him to an extension. I think that was a good move. Nick Pivetta will probably be your number 2 at this point. And then you figure it out with guys like Crawford and Houck and Whitlock. Maybe Winkowski's in the mix. But either way, no matter how you cut it, this rotation is lacking, right? So Jordan Montgomery has been just the perfect piece for them all off season. He is still a free agent at the time of recording this video. To me, that's a guy that just makes them better, not just for this year, but that would be a good stable piece for the rotation for the next few years. If they can get him, I think that changes things and that really helps them out. But this rotation right now, it's definitely a question mark. I think Brian Bayo can take a step forward this year. Carter Crawford is intriguing. Tanner Houck is intriguing. Don't forget, they have Andrew Bailey, new pitching coach. He did great with the Giants. So I think he can get more out of these guys. But is that going to be enough to give you a good rotation that's competitive for the entire year? Now, offensively, they do have some good pieces. Obviously, Rafael Devers, one of the better bats in the game. Tristan Casas showed a lot of promise last year after a slow start. Jaron Duran as well, finally emerging last year before getting hurt towards the end of the year. Masataka Yoshida looked great in the first half, but he wore down in the second half, so looking for more consistency from him after coming over from Japan. Tyler O'Neill, this is a bounce-back candidate this year, has some pretty decent advanced metrics last year that could suggest that a bounce-back season is due for him, so we'll see. Trevor Story, another bounce-back candidate. Defensively, amazing, but let's see what he can do with the bat. It just hasn't been there in his first couple of years in in Boston. So there's more upside in this lineup to me than there is in the rotation. And the bullpen, you still got a lot of solid arms here. Now, Kenley Jansen, will he be with the Red Sox by opening day? We'll see. Will he be with the Red Sox by the trade deadline? I don't know. Still got some solid arms. Chris Martin, Winkowski, who I mentioned earlier. Campbell, I think, was a low-key signing. Good arm from the Mariners there. Someone like Greg Weissert. Don't forget they traded Alex Verdugo to the Yankees. Got a couple of pieces in Richard Fitz and Weissert in there as well. Slayton, look out for him. This is a guy who's been pitching pretty well in spring training. He's been getting good reviews. Garrett Whitlock, getting back to him, I feel like he needs to be in the bullpen. Anytime he's a starter, he's always having arm issues. I think they just need to put him back in the bullpen. But overall, with this team, I'm not quite sure what to think of it at this point. There are some prospects here. Marcelo Meyer, Roman Anthony, Kyle Teal. That's the big three that's going to be coming up over the next couple of years. I think these three guys, maybe you can even see them this year. Maybe there's a possibility there. But the Red Sox do feel short at this point, especially in this competitive division. I think they could surprise some people. I think there is talent here. They have to put it together, though. We'll see. But right now, it doesn't feel great. I'm actually going to go under here. I would love to say over. I think there's a chance they could surprise some people, but I think you got to go under, right? They, get after, especially you don't have Chris Sale, and he wasn't even doing much for you anyway. I got to go under for the Red Sox here. But hey, maybe they can turn some heads this year. However, I will say though, if they can sign Jordan Montgomery, I do think their win total goes up here. Jordan Montgomery would add a good amount of innings to this rotation, especially now that you don't have Lucas Giolito in it. With Montgomery, you would have a few guys that can eat up a lot of innings, including Montgomery, Pivetta, Bayo, and then you get a couple of interesting pieces in Cutter Crawford and Houck. That would move Garrett Whitlock to the bullpen, which I think would be a better role for him. Now, payroll-wise, I do wonder if they would have to move Kenley Jansen to free up some payroll space to be able to fit Montgomery. But either way, they are a better team with Montgomery in it. Will they do it? I'm not quite sure, but if they do sign him, which I think they should sign him, so like a 4 or 5 year deal, I think their win total would definitely go into the 80s. Would it be enough to get a wild card? I mean, hey, you never know. You got to go play the games at the end of the day. But Montgomery would definitely give them more stability on this team. Moving on to the Cincinnati Reds, they have them at 82.5, and I like this Reds team coming into this year. And actually, at the time of this recording, it was announced that Noelvi Marte is going to be suspended for 80 games. How are these guys still getting suspended for this stuff? My goodness, can we just cut it out already? But there's a lot of talent in this lineup. I'm a big fan of guys like Matt McClain, like me some Spencer Steer, like me some Christian Encarnacion Strand, big power bat right there, like me some Ellie De La Cruz. Let's see, he cooled off last year after a hot start after coming up, so let's see if he can get him back on track. Free agent signing in Jamer Candelario, I think that was a solid ad for them, and now that's great because Noelvi Marte's out. So I mean, it's funny because everyone all offseason was wondering like, oh well, they got a bit of a logjam here in this Reds infield. Well, now it's solved. So anyway, but there definitely a lot of talent in this lineup. I like the way it looks. And don't forget about Jonathan India. Obviously this guy is the heart and soul of the team. He'll be in this lineup as well. He'll be decent for the most part. But the pitching, right? The pitching, I think, is what's going to be able to keep this team afloat. Hunter Green, I'm looking for more out of him. This guy, the sky is just the limit for him, right? Big Hunter Green fan, big velocity, nasty stuff. So let's see if we can put it together this year. Graham Ashcraft, a guy that has really good stuff. I think he's pretty underrated. Andrew Abbott, he had some good moments last year. Nick Martinez was a good free agent signing for them. And then Frankie Montas, missing pretty much all of last year, having problems with the shoulder. Let's see if he can get back to his old form. If he does, that's a huge pickup for the Reds. And then you got the bullpen, Alexis Diaz. I like him. You got Pagan and Sims here in the setup roles. And you got some arms in middle relief and whatnot. I do worry about this bullpen a little bit. So let's see how it ends up going this year. You do have some decent arms here, but overall, I think there's a lot of young talent on this Reds team, and I think they're going to be more competitive than people think. They were right in the hunt for a wild card spot last year. They won 82 games, and I think they're going to be a better team. I'm going to go over here. I think they're going to be very competitive. I think they'll go after a wild card yet again, maybe even make some noise in the division. On to the Colorado Rockies. They won 59 games last year, and BetUS has them at 60.5. I mean, there's not really a whole lot to be excited about with the Rockies. They do got some bats, right? Chris Bryant, though, it was a big signing a couple of years ago that has not gone well. It's been a bad contract so far. He's missed a lot of time. So let's see if he can put it together this year. I will say I am excited about Nolan Jones. He was very good last year. That was a steal for them, right? He couldn't really get it going with Cleveland, and they traded him over here to Colorado, and he's just been great ever since getting there. So let's see what he can do this coming year. Brendan Rodgers missing some time last year. This is a guy who was a former top prospect. Let's see if he can finally get something going here. But, other than that, I don't know. There's just not really like a whole lot for me to get fully excited about with this lineup. Now, the pitching, right? When you're looking at this pitching, I don't know. All right, like Feldner is a guy I think you should keep an eye on. He had some pretty good velocity last year. He had a scary injury, right? Got a fracture in the skull last year. He got hit by a comebacker. So let's see, how he's going to be. I think he's going to be fine. He looked fine at the end of the year last year. Had some elbow issues as well, but that's a guy to maybe pay attention to for this coming year. Bullpen. I don't know, man. This is not really a whole lot for me. It's, Herman Marquez. Remember, he got Tommy John, so you're not going to see him. Bard, he had a procedure with his knee. I don't know. I'm going under here. I can't find. I try to get excited about the Rockies. I feel every year I'm trying to look for something to maybe give me a reason why they could just be this shocking team. And no, I'm just not feeling it with the Rockies. I'm going to go under. Moving on to one of the more active teams this offseason, the Kansas City Royals, only winning 56 games last year, but BetUS has them at 73.5. They had a very active offseason, bringing in guys like Hunter Renfroe. You brought in Lugo and Waka for the rotation. You brought in Smith, Schreiber, Anderson, Stratton, Sawyer for the bullpen. It feels like a completely new team at this point to go along with some of the young guys that they already have. They extended Bobby Witt Jr. to a massive contract. Vinny Pasquantino, he's going to be coming back after missing some time last year. You got some other bats in here like Mako Garcia, I think could be pretty decent this year. MJ Melendez, I think could give you a little bit more here. Don't forget about Salvador Perez. He's still going to give you some pop there. He's not very good defensively. The Royals, I think they will be improved in the offense. Now, when it comes to the pitching, Lugo and Waka, I think those are solid adds, right? Waka, though, he has had some health stuff over the last couple of years. He has missed some time, so let's see how durable he is this coming year. Lugo is going into year 2 of being a starter. So, sure, I like the adds of those guys, but how much it's going to give, I'm not quite sure. Reagans, though, I'm very excited about Cole Reagans, right? He could not figure it out with Texas, came over to Kansas City, and they figured something out, and this guy was dominant down the stretch. He was fantastic, so excited to see what he can do. Now, I'll be honest with you, I'm not as high on the Royals as other people out there. I think they're going to be better, but this is a 17-win difference. They only won 56 games last year, and, they made these additions. Is that going to be 17 wins? I'm not sure. Now, I will say, with the progression of some of the younger guys, Pasquantino coming back, these veteran guys giving a boost, I will go over here, but do I expect them to go after a wild card or this division? Sure, I think they could be in the mix, but I wonder by the end of the year where they'll be. We'll see. But again, I'm not going to be, head over heels like a lot of other people out there, but I will be over this win mark here at 73.5. I think they could be in that 75 to 80 range. On to the Detroit Tigers. After winning 78 games last year, BetUS has them at 80.5. Remember a couple of years ago, people were expecting the Tigers to take this big step forward and then they take this big step back. But last year, they got back on track a little bit, 78 wins, and now they're at 80.5. And, I like this Tigers team coming into this year. They made some solid additions, in my opinion. A lot of veteran guys here. Mark Canha, Gio Urshela. For the lineup, you got Jack Flaherty and Kenta Maeda for the rotation. You brought in Chafin and Miller for the bullpen. I like that. I like all of these veteran guys coming in to pair with a lot of these younger guys like Torkelson, who took a step forward last year. Riley Green, that's a dynamic player. Colt Keith, look out for him. I think he's going to be a very good player. They just signed him to an extension without even playing a game in the major leagues, so he did very well in the minors. So Colt Keith is a bat to look out for this year. Don't forget about Javier Baez. Sure, say what you will. I think the bat will be a little better this year, I would imagine. He's still going to give you solid defense at shortstop. Guys like Kerry Carpenter, look out for him. He was decent last year. Parker Meadows as well. So I think this Tigers lineup, I think it's going to be pretty decent for the most part. Rotation, I got my eyes on Tarek Skubal. Like, this guy was nasty after he came back last year. He missed a lot of time, but came back towards, down the stretch, and he was fantastic. I think he could low-key be a Cy Young candidate. I might sound crazy there, but that guy's nasty. Just check out some highlights of Skubal. I'm really excited to see what he can do. And I think this bullpen, there's some good arms in this bullpen. I like Lang and Foley back here, Chafin and Miller, veteran guys to help anchor it. I like this Tigers team, honestly. I think it's pretty balanced, and I think they are ready to take a step forward. I'm going to go way over 80.5. Well, maybe not way over, but I think they're going to definitely beat that. I think they're going to be a good team this year. I think at least 84 to 87 wins for the Tigers. On to the Minnesota Twins. They won 87 games last year, winning the AL Central, and BetUS has them at 86.5. Not really much by the Twins this offseason. You saw Sonny Gray, one of their best pitchers last year, go to the St. Louis Cardinals. But other than that, not really much else. Taking a look at the lineup. Now, you are going to get Royce Lewis for a full season. I really hope this guy can stay healthy, right? He's had a lot of ups and downs so far in his pro career, but he has been awesome for the Twins lately since staying healthy. So hopefully a good full season. I could see a big breakout year for Royce Lewis. He was so good last year when he came back, and he came up big in the postseason as well. Carlos Correa, a down year for him last year. Let's see what he can do this coming year. I would imagine he's going to be a bit better for this coming year. The projections think he will do better, hitting 262, a 341 on base, 443 on the slugging. While last year his slugging was a 399, only hit 230, so still played some decent defense, but Correa definitely has to give more there. Buxton going to be moving out to center field. To me, he's such an injury concern. I'm not sure what to think of that. I feel like the best thing would be to keep him at DH. I don't know. That's just me. You did bring in Carlos Santana. That's a decent guy with some pop. Kepler, he's going to give you a little pop from the left side. So we'll see. And then, of course, you got Julian. This guy really came up in some big spots last year for the Twins, had a 459 slugging, 16 home runs, and 408 plate appearances. So I think Julian's going to be a solid bat for them moving forward. And then the rotation. Like I said, Sonny Gray going to the Cardinals. I worry about this rotation a little bit. I like Lopez. Ryan's fine there. Ober, I think, is fine for the rotation. But then you got some question marks. Chris Paddock mainly. He's had a lot of injury concerns over the past few years. He's missed a lot of time. If he can come back and get back to close to what he was doing in 2019 with the Padres, then yeah, I think that would be huge. But that's a big if, right? Desclafani, wasn't amazing last year. I mean, ERA right near the fives, so I don't know. I'm a little concerned about this rotation as a whole, to be honest. I like Duran and Jax at the back end of the bullpen. When it comes to the other guys here, yeah, there's some decent arms here, like Topa. They added him. Don't forget about that. Okert, they added him as well. I think those are some decent guys, veteran guys for the bullpen. So, Brock Stewart, a small sample size last year, did pretty well. So we'll see how the Twins bullpen is as a whole. I think it's going to be fine for the most part. I personally see the Twins taking a small step back. I think losing Gray is a big deal, right? And when you're replacing him basically with someone like Paddock and Desclafani, I don't think that's really doing much for you. Maybe Paddock can, surprise some people. A fully healthy season, that would be huge. But I'm going to go under here. I'm not as high on the Twins as I was last year. I still think they're going to be in the mix for the division. So for the Twins, though, right now, I'm going under. On to the Chicago White Sox. They completely fell off a cliff last year, and BetUS is thinking 63.5 for the White Sox this year. Now, starting off with the lineup, yeah, you got some bats, right? Luis Robert finally had a breakout full season last year. That was good to see. Moncada, towards the end of the year, he was showing some signs of life. Benintendi, overall, a pretty down season for him last year. Vaughn, still looking for that step forward from him. We'll see what he can do. Eloy Jimenez, there's always an injury concern with him. Hopefully a fully healthy year out of him. He could definitely do some damage there. But, overall, the lineup, though, I just think there's a lot of question marks, and the rotation is a huge question mark. You don't even know if Dylan Cease, is going to be even with you on opening day. Who knows? Maybe a team can swing a trade before then. But then you got some of these other guys, it feels like they're almost just crying out for spots at this point. Like, Eric Fetty and Kopech and Soroka. Soroka, let's see if he can finally stay healthy. Kopech, there's definitely a lot of upside with him. I personally feel like he would be just such a good back end of the bullpen guy, but hey, he wants to keep trying as a starter. Let's see if he can do something. Davy Garcia, that was a guy that, was a top prospect for the Yankees at one point. Crochet should be coming back, fully healthy this year. So overall, though, this White Sox team, I think they're going through a transition right now. I'm going to go under here. I think they're going to have a really tough season this year. I think Dylan Cease ends up getting traded. But yeah, I see a tough season for the White Sox. I'm going under on the 63.5. And last but not least, we got the Yankees at 93.5 after only winning 82 games last year. The Yankees' big addition this offseason was Juan Soto heading in to the last year before free agency. I think you could see a monster year from Juan Soto, one of the best hitters in the game, and he's going into a walk year with a big contract on the line. I mean, my goodness, what kind of damage can he do with that kind of motivation? I'm just saying. Aaron Judge, hopefully a full year of health from him. He was amazing a couple of years ago, and then last year ran into the wall at Dodger Stadium, missed some time after that, so hopefully no freak injuries with him. You did add Alex Verdugo. I think that's a decent bat for them to add, right? Going to be more of a contact hitter, and I think that's something the Yankees could use. He's going to bring you some energy, right? He's always trying to hype up the other guys there, so let's see with Verdugo. There, him and Cora got into some spats last year, so let's see if that ends up being anything in with the Yankees here. But we're looking for some bounce back seasons from guys like DJ LeMahieu, Anthony Rizzo, especially Giancarlo Stanton. I mean, people are looking for him to just finally do something. He looks a lot leaner this spring training, so let's see how that goes. Gleyber Torres was solid for the most part last year, but with Soto and Judge in the middle of this order, and if Rizzo can bounce back and LeMahieu, and then Stanton can give you a little bit more, then yeah, I think this Yankee lineup could be very good. And a couple of young guys, Volpe and Wells. Volpe, I think was pretty decent last year. He was decent all around, right? He brought you some good fielding, some good speed, brought you some pop as well. So let's see if he can take a step forward. And then Wells, let's see how that goes with him this coming year. First full year in the major leagues. Trent Grisham, a guy that's going to give you some defense off the bench. So the rotation, right? All eyes have been on Carlos Rodon, right? Carlos Rodon was amazing with the Giants a couple of years ago. And then last year, couldn't get anything going, had a bad back going into the year. So Rodon, the health has always been a thing with him, but he looks like he's in better shape this spring training. Let's see how that goes, right? I do think Rodon is going to be pretty decent this year. He seems motivated. Again, looks like he's in better shape. Looks like he's in better spirits. So Rodon, Cole, top of that rotation. I mean, my goodness, that's a really good 1-2 punch if both of them are on top of their game. They added in Marcus Stroman. I think it's a good add for them. A guy that's going to bring some energy to that team. Guy that's going to get you a lot of ground balls. You got some guys that are pretty good in the infield there. I think that's going to be a nice match. Overall, he's a good 3, in my opinion. And Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, looking for a bounce back from Cortez this year. Schmidt, hopefully a step forward for him. I definitely think there's upside with this rotation, though. And the bullpen, right? The Yankees bullpen has always, for the last couple of years now, has been a pretty solid unit. I love Clay Holmes back there. Loaisaga, hopefully a fully healthy season from him. Bringing in a couple of lefties like Caleb Ferguson and Victor Gonzalez gives him a couple of different looks there. So, yeah. I like, what the Yankees are doing here. And don't forget about Jason Dominguez. He had to get elbow surgery. Let's see if he comes back at some point this year. And we saw what he did last year when he came up. He got hot in the minors last year, and he just kept it going all the way to the majors, homering off of Justin Verlander. So that would be a huge, huge get for them if he comes back this year. So overall for the Yankees, I think they're going to have a good bounce back year this year. I'm going to go over on the 93.5. But those are my picks for the over-unders for each team. Let me know what you think down below in the comments. Would you have gone over or under on any of these teams? Do you agree with some of the ones I went with? Do you disagree? Let me know what you think in the comments. But if you can on the way out. Hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you are new, and make sure to check out BetUS. The link is in the description down below. They have some great deals going right now, so be sure to check them out. Everyone, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.